Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a winter storm threat for next week across parts of the United States. We'll also be talking about the threat of an Arctic blast for a very large chunk of the country, and there will be a threat for severe weather. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, but let's begin with what's happening across the United States today, and we'll first begin with the southern plains, and this is an area that we actually are seeing some activity in terms of cloud cover, and this is all from Hurricane Norma, which is back down here in parts of the Pacific Ocean. It is making landfall to Mexico tonight, and this will bring some very heavy rainfall and very high wind speeds, upwards of 80 to 90 miles per hour, near parts of Mexico. So this will continue to move off to the north, and as it does so, we're going to actually see a lot of moisture starting to be pulled out of parts of the Gulf of Mexico and as well as the Pacific Ocean, and this will start to ramp up the rain chances for next week across the Great Plains, and there will be a threat for some severe weather. And we're going to see a very active next 7 to 10 days, so buckle up. It's going to be very active, and we'll show you what that looks like on the future radar here in just a moment. Back up in the northeast United States, we are seeing some rainfall up there as well. There is a low pressure system that is off coast, and we are seeing some heavy rainfall in parts of New England. Overall, that'll start to taper down as we head into tomorrow, but that will kind of sit there for the next 12 to 24 hours. Some cloud cover across parts of the Midwest, but overall fairly dry. Notice this dry slot here that extends all the way from the northern plains back into parts of the southeast, and then on the west coast we are seeing some minimal activity. Most of it is just cloud cover right now, and all of that will start to lead into our threat for not just a winter storm but also an Arctic blast as we head into later this upcoming week. Let's talk more about the jet stream, which will be impacting the weather patterns here across the United States over the next 10 to 12 days. And notice right now we have a low pressure system back over in the northeast United States. We also have a pretty weak upper level disturbance that's back over in parts of the west coast. And these two systems really not too big of a deal right now. And overall, they're not really making any major impacts to what we're going to see later during the week. Because again, we're going to see a winter storm, potentially even an Arctic blast, and as well as the threat for severe weather. So notice as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, we are going to be watching multiple different areas in the upper levels especially. So we have a low pressure system that'll be back over near the Four Corners states going into late Tuesday. We'll also be watching another storm that's going to be over in the Pacific Northwest, both of which we'll have to watch very closely. This first one here is not really going to bring much of a cool down, especially since it's a bit more subtropical. We're really looking for more rainfall out of this with maybe a minor cool down. This would have to be the storm that we need to watch for the big cool down, and we'll be watching another system behind this one as well, and it'll likely bring that large cool down to the United States. So this is going into late Tuesday or late Wednesday into Thursday. Notice that storm starts to march across parts of the central plains and the southern plains. Fairly strong, by the way, upper level winds. We actually have a pretty strong jet stream here. Also, this is where our main jet stream is in terms of the strongest jet stream. That's back up in the northern tier of the United States. Storm is still sitting there by Wednesday night. As we go into Thursday into Friday, that low pressure system will race across parts of the Midwest, and that'll bring the threat for maybe some severe weather, but as well as really heavy rainfall and potentially some snow to parts of the upper Midwest. By Friday, we're going to be watching an intensifying low pressure system back up in Canada, and you might be thinking this really won't impact the United States, right? Actually, no, that's the exact opposite, because what's going to happen is we're going to see very strong winds aloft here across much of the southern tier and as well as back through the northern tier of the United States. And look at this area here that we're looking at. This is our low pressure system, and we're going to be watching a very sharp cool down most likely as we go into the following week. So by around Halloween, around the beginning of November, that is when there will be likely a very sharp cool down here across much of the lower 48, and that'll start to ramp up and really bring an intense cool down to much of the United States. And I'll show you what that looks like in terms of the temperatures as well here in just a second. I did want to point out that there is a risk for severe weather on tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday. We do have a slight risk of severe weather across parts of the Midwest. We might go live for this, so make sure you stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you're notified if and when we do go live. But that'll definitely be something to watch for on Tuesday. I'll show you more details on that in our next forecast once things become a bit more refined. Here's the overall cool down that we're looking at next week. Again, things are going to be kind of crazy next week. Overall, above normal temperatures are expected through around Wednesday or Thursday of next next week. Look at all this red that you're seeing here. This is our temperature anomalies, and the darker red that you're noticing across parts of the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes region, that is where it's overall going to be above average or well above average. Meanwhile, other areas will be around average, if not just a little bit above average. Now look at this big cool air back up in parts of Canada as well as in the Pacific Northwest. This is what we'll have to be watching for, because once this ejects out of Canada, we are going to see a very quick cool down. So notice as we go into late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, some of that is leaking there into Montana. Once we go into Thursday into Friday, it kind of still sits there, but once we get that trough really intensifying near the surface over the northern plains, that's when we're going to start to see more of this start to plow down into parts of the northern plains. Look at this by Friday into Saturday. It starts to leak a little bit, but once we get that more intense low pressure system by Saturday into Sunday, that it's when it's more likely that this will start to really push into parts of the Great Plains. And notice this by Monday into Tuesday of next week, we have potentially a very large area of cooler weather that will extend all the way back down into Texas. Now, I want to point out one thing, that this is still over a week out, so a lot of things could change between now and then, but if this does happen, it's obviously going to be a very big cool down and obviously an Arctic blast as well. This purple would be representing the potential for temperatures to be as low as the teens in some areas, and we are now getting closer to November, so that'll definitely be something to watch for. And again, this would be very late October into early November. Now, this is crazy. This is the wind chills over the next several days. This is not the temperatures. Again, this would be the wind chills factoring in the wind with the temperature. Notice as we go into Wednesday and Thursday of next week, we're going to get pretty cold back up in Montana. Teens for wind chills in Thursday morning and even during the daytime. It's going to be pretty chilly up there. It's going to sit there, by the way, for quite some time. Now, as we get closer to the weekend, we're going to start to notice a bit of that cool down in parts of like Nebraska, for example. And then once we go closer to Halloween, again, this is where it becomes a bit uncertain, but if we see this Arctic blast as strong as it is currently estimated by the models to be, we could see wind chills back down into potentially the single digits, potentially even below zero in some areas, getting closer to next Tuesday morning, which would again be Halloween morning. It could get very cold in some areas. Again, wind chills, this is not the actual temperatures, but obviously this would be definitely something to watch out for. That would definitely require some layers of clothes for you to go outside, because it's going to get probably pretty chilly as we get closer to November. Now, let's bring you through the future radar to give you an idea of what this winter storm could look like next week. Again, as of right now, we're really not going to see a whole lot of rain activity, probably until Tuesday. That'll really start in parts of the southern plains, so as well as Texas and Oklahoma, potentially even into parts of Kansas. Notice as we go into Tuesday night, this is where we'll be watching for a severe weather threat, capable of damaging winds, large hail, perhaps even a couple tornadoes, but overall, it shouldn't be a severe weather outbreak. As we go into Thursday, more rainfall really ramping up across the southern and central plains. Meanwhile, we'll have a chance for a winter storm. This should stay relatively far off to the north in the United States, so areas being impacted would probably be Minnesota and maybe North Dakota, but notice where the snow is here on the European model, kind of indicating it would be on the very far northern side there of Minnesota. Then going into the late weekend and into early next week, that's when things again become very uncertain. Will we see an Arctic blast? Will we see a winter storm? They seem possible, but I can't say for certain we'll definitely see them. But if we do, again, there might be some snowfall over there, but it doesn't look like that'll really leak into much of the Midwest. If it did, it would be in the upper Midwest. So overall, again, a lot of uncertainty for next week. Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted with the latest details. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure you like the video.